An alien empire captured a lone human soldier and tortured him for weeks. Not for intel, but for fun. They thought no one would come for him. They were wrong. When the footage reached Earth, humanity didn't respond with threats. It simply went silent. Now, entire worlds are vanishing. Alien fleets are torn apart in the dark. No warnings, no mercy. Just silent retribution from a species they never should have provoked. This is the story of one man's suffering, and the galaxy's reckoning. The room was dark and cold. Thick walls made of alien alloy surrounded the small space like a prison. A single light above flickered, casting shadows over the broken body of the man inside. His name was Corporal James Rourke. He was human. And, for 3 days, the aliens had tortured him without pause. The Garathi Empire was known across the galaxy for its cruelty. They ruled through fear, crushing rebellions with poison and flame. When they captured humans, they often kept one alive not for interrogation, but for entertainment. They believed humans were weak, emotional creatures. They thought pain would make them scream. James hadn't screamed once. 3 Garathi officers stood behind a transparent wall, watching the human slump forward again. His wrists were bound, his uniform torn. Blood pooled beneath the chair. His breathing was shallow, but his eyes, those cold blue eyes, stared straight ahead, unblinking. "He's close to breaking," said Commander Vickers, arms folded across his chest. "Another hour, maybe 2. "No," said Lieutenant Sid. "He is different. Most cry by now. Beg this one watches us." The third alien, a young officer named Gallic, tilted his head. "Do humans not fear death?" "They do," Vickers replied. "But they also take pride in defiance. It's primitive pride. Useless." Setal leaned closer to the glass. "We should break that pride. Rip it out." They entered the room again. James didn't move. His face was swollen. One eye shut tight, his lips cracked. But when Vickers approached, James smiled just a little. It wasn't a normal smile. It was the kind you saw in nightmares. "You still think you're winning," James whispered. Vek as frowned. "You can barely speak." James lifted his head. "You made a mistake." Sital barked a laugh. "You are alone, human." James didn't answer. He just looked at them. That look made something twist inside Yalek's chest. A strange feeling, unease. Back on Earth, they had warned the Garathi. Humanity had entered the galactic stage only 50 years ago, but they had moved fast. Too fast. Other races took thousands of years to travel the stars. Humans did it in less than 100. They colonized harsh worlds, built fleets, made allies. But the Garathi laughed at Earth's warnings. Soft-bodied, apes, they called them, loud, emotional, too chaotic to be a real threat, so they took a colony, then another. And then they captured James. James wasn't just a soldier. He was a signal. And now, the signal had been sent. 6 hours later, a small Garathi cruiser near the edge of the system went silent. No explosion. No warning. Just ... silence. Another ship, sent to investigate, vanished too. Admiral Lauret of the Garathi High Fleet stood aboard the command vessel Vakarin Sprite. His eyes stared at the dark space ahead. "Where are our patrols?" He growled. "Unknown," his officer said. "They simply disappeared." "Send more." The third group didn't disappear. They sent a message, just static, and one human word. "Hunting." Back in the prison room, alarms blared, red lights flashed. Yalek looked around, confused. "Is it an attack?" James looked up again. That same broken face, that same small smile. "They're here," he said. The floor shook. Screams echoed. From down the hall. Not human screams. Girathi screams. Satile reached for his communicator. Security teams, report. But there was only static. James leaned forward. You thought we were weak, but you don't understand. We don't scream because we've been through worse. We don't beg because we don't fear death, and we don't forget. The wall exploded behind them. A black armored figure stepped through the smoke, weapon in hand. The armor was bulky, old-world Terran steel mixed with alien tech. A white symbol was painted on the shoulder, red hand gripping a torch. The Girathi officers raised their weapons. But they were too slow. The figure fired once. Satal dropped. Another shot. Vikas fell backward, lifeless. Only Yalek remained. He froze, hands shaking. Don't, James whispered. Don't run. Holek ran. The armored human knelt beside James, cutting his restraints. Extraction team, James asked, his voice rough. Yes, sir, you did good. James tried to stand, collapsed, but the soldier caught him. What's your name? Private De Soto. They call us the Black Silence. James smiled again, this time with pride. Across the Girathi Empire, more attacks came. Ships vanished. Outposts fell silent. Entire fleets disappeared. No declarations of war. No demands. Just silence. And then, messages. Short, cold. You touched one of ours. Now we touch everything. The galaxy had known human kindness, trade, diplomacy, music, culture. Now they met the other side. The one that wakes when pain is given. The one that hunts in silence and never stops. Galek ran. He didn't look back. His claws scraped the floor as he fled the ruined interrogation chamber. Behind him, alarms screamed. Somewhere far off, explosions rocked the station. The corridor lights flickered. Screams echoed from every direction, his people's screams. He stumbled into a lift and slammed his hand on the control pad. Command level. Now, the doors slid shut, and for a moment, there was silence. His breath came fast. His uniform was stained with bloodsome, his, most not. His hands trembled. The human had warned them. But no one had listened. Now the prophecy was happening. The prophecy of vengeance. Gaelic had never believed that humans were dangerous, just loud, aggressive, predictable, but the man they tortured, the one they thought was broken, he had stared through them like a ghost, a walking curse. When the lift opened, the command center was chaos. Officers shouted, tactical screens flickered with errors. No clear enemy signatures, just systems failing one by one. What's happening? Galek demanded. Admiral Lorot turned, his green skin pale. They've shut down our sensors. Our AI cores are going offline. They're not just attacking, they're deleting us. Galek blinked. That's not possible. It would take months. No. Lorat slammed his fist on the console. This is a coordinated strike. They knew everything. Where our backups were, how to bypass encryption. They planned this, but they didn't even know where we kept the prisoner, Garlic said quietly. They didn't have to. Lorat's voice dropped low. That man was the message. Suddenly, a screen lit up. Not with Girathi symbols, but human text. White letters on a black background. You hurt one. We erase thousands. Then the lights went out. Back aboard a human stealth cruiser, Private De Soto watched the data stream from the fallen station. Mission accomplished. Station disabled. Survivors, less than 10%. Commander Sienna Cross nodded. Her armor, black and smooth, bore no rank markings. Begin extraction of our people. Burn the rest. Orders for the High Command, De Soto asked. Sienna's voice was calm. Cold. Send the next wave. Target all Girathi military hubs. No warning, no mercy. James Rourke sat on a medical bed behind them, hooked up to IVs and wrapped in bandages. His face was pale, but his eyes were alert. He had refused full sedation. "They think this is just revenge," he said softly, "but it's not." Sienna looked back at him. "Then what is it?" "It's proof." James took a shaky breath. "Proof that, if you take one of us, you don't just fight one person. You fight everyone." Across the galaxy, human warships emerged from shadows. They didn't fly in formation. They didn't speak. They just appeared one by one like ghosts. And when they attacked, they left nothing behind. Orbital platforms went dark. Fuel stations stopped responding. Entire moons lost all power. Their surfaces cratered and lifeless. The Jarathi High Council tried to send diplomats, messages filled with apologies, pleas for understanding, promises of change. Humanity didn't answer. They simply kept coming. Every battlefield was the same: no survivors, no signals, only silence. In one shattered sector, a lone Garathi pilot floated among the wreckage. His escape pod barely clung to life. Through the cracked window, he saw them. Black ships, no emblems, no noise. He screamed into his cum, "Please, I surrender, I surrender." No voice replied. But one small drone approached his pod. It projected an image: James Rourke, alive, looking straight at him. "I remember your face," the recording said. The pilot began sobbing. "I didn't touch you, I swear." The recording ended. Then the drone exploded, inside a hidden bunker deep in neutral space. The Kalath observers and ancient, secretive alien race watched the chaos unfold. "They told the galaxy not to provoke Earth," one said. "No one listened," replied another. A third tapped a claw on the table. "We classified them as dangerous. Class 29 threat, but it seems even that wasn't enough." "They are not just a species," said the first, his voice grim. "They are a promise made in silence. A promise that if you touch their kind, you invite extinction." The others finished. Back on Earth, no public news was shared. No grand speeches, only silent deployment orders. Silent returns, silent funerals, and silent rage. James Rourke sat in the hospital wing of the Terran defense carrier Oathkeeper. His wounds were healing. Slowly, but something inside him had already healed. Or maybe it had changed. DeSoto entered with a datapad. "You've been cleared for command status reinstatement." James raised an eyebrow. "I wasn't expecting that." "You're more than a soldier now," DeSoto said. "You're a symbol." James stared at the stars through the viewport. "I didn't want to be," he muttered. "I just wanted to survive." DeSoto nodded. "But you didn't scream, and that changed everything." James closed his eyes. He could still hear the electric hum of the Jarathi tools, still smell the burning flesh, still see the look on Vikas's face when the wall blew open. They thought pain would break him. Instead, it made him sharper, and now the galaxy was bleeding. The sky above Jarathi Prime glowed with artificial aurorist fence shields, stretching across the upper atmosphere like shimmering webs. Dozens of orbital cannons stood ready. Ships patrolled in tight formations, and every port was locked down. The High Council had declared a code: Blacker, Rare. Emergency level, used only in the event of planetary invasion. No one spoke of it openly. But everyone knew the humans were coming. Inside the council chamber, Grand Speaker Tilva stood at the central podium, surrounded by elders and strategists. "We must speak to them," she said. "They cannot remain silent forever." An old military advisor clicked his mandibles. "We tried. They destroyed every envoy, shot them out of space without hesitation. Then we must offer something more, Tilva snapped. Give them what they want. Another elder leaned forward. And what is that? What do they want? Galek, now marked with a law rank status for failing to hold the prisoner, stood at the edge of the room, forgotten by most. But he stepped forward. They want nothing, he said, voice shaking. That's the danger. It's not about territory, or power, or wealth. It's about the man we tortured, and the message we sent. All eyes turned to him. We sent them a message, Yalek said, that their lives don't matter, that we could harm them for fun. And now they've answered with silence, with total, terrifying silence. The room was quiet. Then a young aide rushed in, panic on her face. Council, a ship has entered orbit. Lorat's hologram flared to life beside them. Only one. Yes, sir. Show it. The screen changed. Everyone went still. It wasn't a fleet, it was a single vessel, black, smooth, no lights, no markings, not a sound from it. It didn't even show up properly on sensors. The aide's voice cracked. It's just hovering. Lorat squinted. Weapons? None we can detect, but it's broadcasting something. The image changed again. A single phrase appeared in bright red across the council's massive viewing screen. One life meant everything to us. The chamber filled with silence. Tilva whispered, "What does it want?" The message changed. "Now we take everything from you." Without warning, every defense system across the city powered down. The artificial auroras collapsed. Gun turrets froze. Automated drones fell from the sky. No explosion, no invasion, just instant stillness. Then, across the capital, lights began to flicker, dot, and vanish, in the ruins of Sector 9. Corporal Sienna Cross stepped through the cracked remains of a Jarathi barracks. Her boots crunched over broken weapons. Burned banners hung from the walls. No bodies. The humans never left bodies. She tapped her helmet. Team Alpha, clear. Uploading blacksite coordinates. James Rourke's voice came over the channel, calm and firm. Proceed. She looked down at a small device, the same kind James had been wearing when captured. A tracker. An old one. It took us a long time to find this place, she said softly. Now I understand why you never screamed. The device pulsed once. Blue light swept the area. Doors unlocked. The team entered the vault. Inside were devices. Instruments, things not even the Jarathi had invented. Human minds didn't build this. They only endured it. Pain engines, neural slicers, every corner of the room whispered agony. De Soto stared at the machines. This was never just about one prisoner. They've done this before. Sienna nodded. But this time, they chose the wrong one. Back in the medbay of the Oathkeeper, James slowly stood on his own for the first time since his rescue. His body still ached, but the fire inside him never went out. Admiral Rayner approached. His uniform was spotless, his voice low. "You've started something, Rourke." "I didn't start it," James replied. "They did." Rayner studied him. "We've wiped out 16 Jarathi worlds. Entire fleets gone. Their people are fleeing to uninhabited systems. They're begging for peace. Are we going to give it to them?" James didn't answer right away. He walked to the viewport. Outside, stars glittered, empty, cold. "Did they give me peace when I begged for water?" He asked. "Did they offer peace when they laughed while burning my skin? When they took pleasure in my screams?" Rayner looked down. James turned. "I don't want a treaty. I don't want their surrender. I want them to remember, forever, that there is a cost." The Admiral nodded. "Then we hunt." Galek sat alone in a quiet outpost, far from the core worlds. He had escaped the capital during the blackout. He wasn't a soldier anymore, not even an officer. Just a ghost, hiding in dust. But they found him anyway. The door hissed open, and a figure stepped inside. Human, female, helmeted, armored, in black, with red lines. She didn't raise her weapon. She didn't need to. Yalek stood, shaking. Why me? I didn't torture him. I spoke up. I tried. She didn't speak. She tossed something on the table. A dataship. He picked it up and inserted it into his reader. It was footage of James Rourke being tortured, hour after hour. The woman watched his face change as he realized what he was seeing. Every second, every scream, every burn, every moment Gallic had watched and said nothing. Tears ran down his cheeks. "I'm sorry," he whispered, still. The woman said nothing. The room grew cold and the screen went dark. The last thing Yalek saw was her hand reaching for something at her belt. In orbit above another burning Jirothi world, James Rourke sat in silence. The reports came in. Another fleet gone. Another world abandoned. Another message sent. This was not war. It was warning, and the galaxy had received it. Some called it overkill. Others called it justice. But to humanity, it was balance. One life had been taken for amusement. Now they hunted in silence, and would not stop until the silence was understood by everyone. In the far reaches of Sector 12, where the stars burned dim and the silence stretched longer than thought, a lone research station floated in the void. It belonged to the Cawthary Alliance, neutral, peaceful, curious. For decades, they had studied distant worlds, comets, and interstellar storms. But today, every sensor on the station pointed to one thing: a human ship, not a fleet, just one. Small, black, unmarked. It didn't respond to hails. It didn't send warnings. It just waited. Dr. Velen, lead researcher, floated in the central observatory, staring at the vessel's silhouette through the thick glass. "Have we done something to offend them?" she whispered. Her assistant, a young scientist with trembling limbs, answered, "We've never even spoken to humans. We stayed out of their wars. Then why are they here?" No one knew. The silence stretched. Hours passed. The ship didn't move. Then, suddenly, every terminal on the station went black. A single message appeared in human text. "You sheltered one of them." Panic spread through the Cawthary crew. "We haven't sheltered anyone," Velen shouted, her voice echoing in the steel halls. "Who do they mean?" But the answer came quickly. The ship outside launched a small pod. It attached itself to the airlock. Inside was a data core. When opened, it played a video feed. Jalek. From weeks ago, limp, broken, shivering, whispering for help, and behind him, a Cawthary rescue team pulling him into a medical chamber, helping him, healing him. "We saved him," Velen said softly, "but he didn't deserve saving." The assistant replied. Outside, the human ship powered up its weapons, and the Cawthary understood it wasn't just vengeance anymore, it was justice. Without compromise, the station vanished in a flash of light. Back on the Oathkeeper, Admiral Rayner stood in the war room. Around him were projections of every Jirothi-controlled system, slowly turning from red to black. World by world. Silently. De Soto entered the chamber, holding a datapad. "More civilian colonies have surrendered." Rayner raised a brow. "Surrendered? To who?" "We haven't sent anyone. They just left," De Soto replied. "They emptied the cities and ran." "And where are they running?" "No one knows." Rayner looked at the galaxy map. "We never gave them terms, never demanded payment. We just watched them fall." James entered then, walking slowly but firmly. His scars were still healing. but his presence filled the room. Rayner turned. This war, it's shifting. They're abandoning their worlds. They should, James said. We're not fighting for land. We're fighting to make sure no one ever forgets. Forget what? James looked at him. That humans are not prey. On the distant mining world of Urkai, the last Jarathi fleet tried to make a stand. 12 capital ships, over 100 cruisers, thousands of drones. The commander of the fleet, Admiral Vroth, addressed his soldiers with burning pride. Today, we remind them who we are. They think they can erase us with shadows. We will show them Jarathi steel. The fleet aligned in perfect formation. They waited, nothing came. Then, all at once, their sensors showed hundreds of human heat signatures, but no ships, only moments. Later, the skies above the fleet turned black. Out of the void came projectiles intraceable, invisible to radar. No light, no warning. Just impacts, ship by ship. Their hulls broke apart. Explosions flared. Static filled their channels. Vroth screamed into the void, "Face us, cowards!" Then his screen came alive. James Rourke sitting calmly in a command chair. "You tortured me for fun," James said. "You don't get the right to look brave now." The feed ended. Vroth's ship imploded. In the Galactic Council chambers, once a place of unity and peace, silence fell like a shroud. Representatives from over 40 species sat still, watching the human ambassador. But the seat was empty. No human had attended in weeks, not since the attacks began, not since the stories spread of the one human tortured for entertainment. And what followed? "We must issue a formal demand," cried the ambassador of the Thaline. "This must stop. The humans are becoming monsters." "They're doing what we refused to do," replied the Turkan representative. "Punishing the Jarathi, but entire planets, entire civilizations are falling." The room burst into argument until the lights dimmed. A broadcast played. No one knew who triggered it, but they watched, silent and cold, as a single human voice spoke across the galaxy. James Rourke. His face filled the screen. Not proud, not angry, just tired. "You laughed while I burned," he said. "I asked for water, and you gave me fire. I asked for mercy, and you gave me pain. And now," he paused, "now I ask for nothing." The screen cut. And the council sat in silence in the Terran command hall, hidden beneath the Andes Mountains on Earth. The old war leaders gathered. General Rivas, grey and worn, spoke softly. "The galaxy fears us now." "We didn't start this," said Director Liu. "We offered peace. We offered alliance. We even offered culture. They responded with chains. And now," James said, entering the room, "they finally understand what silence means." The others rose when he entered. Not because of rank, but because of what he represented. He sat without a word. "What happens next?" someone asked. James leaned back. His eyes looked far, as if staring through time itself. "They keep running," he said, "until nowhere is far enough." A long pause. "And when they ask why the stars went dark, why their colonies fell, why humanity stopped speaking, what do we say?" James answered quietly, "We say nothing." The skies above Jarathi Secundus glowed red with ash. Once a mighty capital world, it now burned slowly under the weight of silence. Towering cities lay broken. Oceans boiled. Satellites spun out of control. Nothing worked anymore. Not their weapons, not their shields, not their pride. Small groups of survivors clung to old bunkers, whispering rumors of what the humans were doing next. No one had seen an actual soldier in weeks. No full fleet had arrived. Yet their world still fell, piece by piece, without mercy. In the wreckage of a former academy, A child, Girothy, clutched an old datapad. The pad played an ancient video propaganda. From when the Empire was strong, it showed Girothy warriors laughing over a bound human, mocking his tears. The boy watched in silence. Behind him, his mother slowly took the pad from his hands and threw it into the fire. "No more stories like that," she whispered. On the far side of the galaxy, aboard the Oathkeeper, James Rourke stood in the center of the observation deck, watching the swirl of stars. He didn't look like a hero. His face still bore the marks. His hand still trembled, but the fire in his eyes had only grown colder, deeper. De Soto approached quietly. "The Girothy are offering full surrender." James didn't turn. "To who?" "To us, to you." James remained silent. De Soto hesitated. "They've started turning on their own commanders. Executions, blaming each other." "They're not sorry," James said at last. "They're afraid." He turned now, slowly. "I want them to be afraid. But I want something else more." "What?" "For the galaxy to remember." James walked to a side console, pressed a few keys. A new command went out. Not for bombs, for death, for transmission, across hundreds of worlds, thousands of ships. Every species received the same signal. It couldn't be blocked, couldn't be ignored, couldn't be escaped. It was a video, a single human, James Rourke, sitting in a metal chair in a small, dark room. He didn't speak for the first full minute. He just looked into the camera. Then, in a voice calm and steady, he spoke. "You tortured one of us. You thought it didn't matter. You thought you could do it in the dark, and no one would care. You didn't understand that when you hurt one of us, you touch something older than war, older than fear." His eyes narrowed. "You touch our silence." He leaned forward. "We don't scream when we're hurt. We prepare." Another pause. "We don't come for revenge. We come for justice. For memory, for every scream you laughed at, we answer with silence you'll never escape." The video ended. Nothing more, and nothing needed to be said. On a shattered moon, once used as a Girothy black site, a new kind of team arrived. Not warriors, not bombers, archivists. Human ones. They moved through the ruins with scanners, cameras, and recorders. "Get it all," one said. "Every document, every record, every survivor's name." They weren't destroying this place, they were preserving it, because now, the plan had shifted. No longer just a war of weapons, now a war of history, a war of memory. Every atrocity, every cruelty, every smirk on a torturer's face, it would all be stored, shared, studied, so no one, anywhere in the galaxy, could say, "We didn't know." Inside a distant Terran embassy on a neutral world, an alien diplomat trembled as she spoke to a human envoy. "We want peace," she said. The human woman, dressed in black with no insignia, gave a small nod. "Then speak." "We want to help. Bring an end to this. There are still innocent Girothy civilians, children." The woman held up her hand. "We are not killing civilians. We never have." The diplomat blinked. "But the systems you destroy, we dismantle their empires, their tools, their ability to harm. Not their children, but you leave them with nothing." The woman stared at her. "They left us with less." The diplomat looked away. "And what do you call this? Justice? Or vengeance?" The woman finally stood. "You call it silence. And you were warned." She walked out, leaving the question unanswered. James Rourke sat alone in his quarters, staring at a single object, a medal. One of Earth's highest, given for survival, given for being the spark of a storm. He didn't feel like a hero. He felt like a message, a reminder. He placed the medal down and opened a folder marked with red. Inside, new targets. New black sites, new names, still more, he whispered to himself. A knock came. Sienna Cross entered. New orders. James closed the folder. New ghosts to chase. She sat across from him. How long do we do this? Until the silence is louder than their screams. She nodded. And after that? He didn't answer. Because, after that, there was nothing. On Jarathi Prime, a new voice rose. Not a general, not a warlord, a survivor. Young, scarred, eyes sharp, he stood before the broken council hall and shouted to a crowd. No more silence, he cried. No more arrogance. We caused this, we made them this way. Some cheered, others wept, a few still hated, but the rest, they listened. And perhaps, in that moment, a crack appeared in the wall. Not just of buildings, but of pride, of cruelty, and of history. Aboard the human dreadnought Silent Requiem, the stars seemed farther away than ever. The ship did not hum with power or flare with activity. It moved like a shadow, smooth and unnoticed. It didn't need noise. It had its mission. Commander Sienna Cross stood at the front of the war deck, reviewing intel on a flickering holomap. Another Jarathi facility had been found, this one buried deep under the crust of a mining planet. Not military, not defense-related, worse, children, or what was left of them. A human child had once been taken there years ago, forgotten even by her own people. Experimented on, broken. Until James Rourke's message awoke the memory. Now, the hunters were coming. Behind her, James entered quietly, his face unreadable. "We found it?" he asked. She nodded. "They thought we'd never know." But their own records betrayed them. James didn't speak for a long time. Then, softly, "I want it wiped. No survivors, no broadcast, no messages, just gone." Sienna met his eyes, understood. She didn't argue. She knew better now. This wasn't about rage anymore. It was about silence that weighed more than screams. The operation was fast, clean. No one saw it coming by the time the Jarathi base's outer defenses activated. The Requiem's orbital lances had already cut deep into the crust. Shockwaves tore the rock apart, collapsing the structure from within. Not one transmission escaped. No trace of the children who had once been tortured there remained. Only the dust of justice in the galaxy's neutral zones. Whispers grew louder. The humans don't speak, they don't explain, they don't forgive. They just hunt. At the Galactic Archives on Maverus 9, a group of scholars gathered around a newly arrived Terran file. Not a weapon, not a threat. A document. It detailed the exact sequence of events that had happened to James Rourke, day by day, wound by wound. It included Jarathi logs, video evidence, medical scans. Every scholar who read it went silent. One of them, a young Oralek named Vey, looked up with tears in her eyes. "Why didn't we stop them sooner?" An older mentor answered with a heavy voice. "Because we didn't believe humans could break. And when we saw them stand tall, we thought they felt no pain." "They feel it," they whispered. "They just wait until it's useful." Back on Earth, a monument was being built, not to celebrate victory, but to mark the cost. It was called the Silence Memorial. No names, no voices. Just a smooth obsidian wall with a single line etched across the center. "This is what happens when you hurt one of us." It stood in a quiet valley, watched by no guards, kept by no cameras, but every visitor left changed, and every alien diplomat who arrived on Earth was taken there first. Meanwhile, the last major Jarathi stronghold remained. Jarathi, massive fortress world, their final line of pride. 1,000 ships circled it. 10,000 guns waited. It was here they believed humanity would finally stop. But when the Oathkeeper arrived, it was alone. James stood at the command console.com. He opened a channel to all on Girothi Secondaris. This is your only message. He paused. If you step down, if you walk away, this world will be spared. If not, he didn't finish. The signal cut. The Girothi generals laughed. He comes alone. We will finally kill the ghost. And then 30 human stealth cruisers do cloaked behind them. Black, silent, ready. They didn't fire first, they waited, and the Girothi, in a moment that would define their place in history, made their final mistake. They opened fire. The battle was over in 10 minutes. Every Girothi capital ship was turned to ash. The fortress fell from orbit, slowly, breaking apart like dry bone. And then, true to the promise, the humans said nothing. They left the wreckage behind and moved on. After the final battle, the galaxy changed. Treaties were rewritten, neutral zones expanded. Humanity did not ask for territory. They asked for silence, and silence was given at a diplomatic gathering weeks later. A representative from the Atron coalition asked the human envoy, "Is it over?" The envoy, a young woman in black, simply replied, "Only if they remember. And if they don't." Her eyes didn't blink. Then silence returns. On the Oathkeeper, James stood by a viewport, watching a dying star flicker in the distance. De Soto joined him. The council just confirmed it. The Girothi Empire is gone. Nothing left to fight. James nodded. Double quotes, "Do you want to go home?" De Soto asked quietly. James didn't answer for a long time. "I don't think there's a home for me anymore," he said. De Soto placed a hand on his shoulder. "You saved lives. You reminded the stars what pain costs." "No," James said. "I just made sure no one forgets again." And the stars, vast and endless, gave no reply. Just the cold, eternal silence, which now belonged to humanity. The stars above Earth burned gently, calm now, no longer watched with fear. The Terran homeworld stood quiet, untouched by war. Cities thrived. Children played. Families walked under peaceful skies. But beneath the mountains and oceans, deep inside, command bunkers and memory vaults, humanity remembered, and they were still watching. In one such underground chamber, James Rourke stood before a screen filled with unread messages, diplomatic requests, offers, apologies, regrets. None of them had been answered. Sienna Cross entered behind him, her footsteps light. She carried a single datapad. "It's done," she said. James turned. "What is the final strike team?" "The last hidden facility. Gone." He nodded. "So?" she asked softly, "is it really over now?" James didn't answer right away. He walked to the small memorial built into the chamber wall. No names, just a single embedded screen. It replayed, on loop. A moment from his captivity, him strapped to the chair, bleeding, eyes unfocused. Then the camera zoomed in on his face. That look, that defiance. He stared into the lens. Not broken, that moment had changed everything. "It'll never be over," James finally said. "Not really." "But we won," she said. James turned to her. "We warned them. We gave them a chance to see us. They laughed. Now we don't ask to be seen. We just make sure they remember." He reached into his coat and pulled out something old, a silver chain with a small dog tag. Not his. It belonged to the first human who died in the first attack, the child who was taken. Her name still scratched onto the metal. He handed it to Sienna. "This is what we fought for," he said. She took it with care, far away. On a former Girothi world, now silent and abandoned, a lone alien explorer in a pressure suit walked the ruins. His people had only recently begun to visit these places. Slowly, nervously, he stepped over scorched metal and broken towers, his scanner clicking softly. Then he found it. A black box, not a weapon, not a trap, just a voice recorder. He pressed play. James Rourke's voice came out, low and calm. If you're hearing this, you survived. Maybe you were innocent, maybe you weren't. Doesn't matter now. What matters is what you do with this memory. The alien stood frozen. James's voice continued. We didn't come to conquer. We didn't come to rule. We came because you touched one of us and thought it was small. You thought one human life was forgettable. He paused. And we showed you what one human life means. The box clicked off. The explorer stood in silence for a long time. Then, carefully, he placed the box on a broken pedestal. He didn't take it, he just bowed and left it there, as a warning, as a reminder, in orbit above Earth. The Terran Command Fleet rested. Ships that had erased empires now drifted in formation. Like ancient guardians of a sleeping beast, James Rourke stood aboard the silent Requiem, looking down at the world he had once fought to return to. Sienna joined him. Command wants to know if you'll accept retirement honors, she said. I already retired once, James replied. She chuckled. You were tortured for 3 days and came back as the symbol of an extinction-level policy. You don't get to retire again without people noticing. He didn't smile, he simply looked at Earth. Do they know? He asked quietly. Down there, the people. The ones who weren't hurt, who didn't lose anyone. Do they understand what happened out here? Sienna was quiet. Then, they don't need to. James turned to her. They're safe. That's enough, she said. You carried the pain, so they wouldn't have to. He looked back at the planet. Then maybe it was worth it. In a dark chamber aboard a drifting alien archive ship, far from known space, a new class was being taught. Today, the ancient scholar said, we discuss the silent war. The students' whole non-human listened closely. Tell me, what was humanity's greatest weapon? Hands rose, their ships, their tactics, their speed of development. The scholar shook his head. No, their greatest weapon was their memory. He turned on a screen. A familiar face appeared. James Rourke, seated in the chair. During his captivity, this man was not a king, not a general, not a president. He was just a soldier. Just one life. The students leaned forward. One life, the scholar said, started a war no one declared, ended an empire that had lasted thousands of years. Without negotiation, without threats, just silence. The screen faded. The students said nothing. They understood now. Years later, on a colony far from Earth, a child asked her mother, why do we have a holiday called the Day of Silence? The mother smiled softly. Because once a human was hurt so badly, the stars went quiet. Did he win? The mother knelt beside her. No, child, he didn't win. Then what happened? The mother looked up at the night sky. Made sure no one ever lost the way he did, ever again. And high above them, among stars that now knew better than to laugh at human pain, a single Terran beacon pulsed quietly, once every 60 seconds, a silent heartbeat. A reminder that humanity had spoken once and didn't need to speak again.